things we're dealing with are threats to humanity unlike anything the world has ever seen before.
We can bequeath our children a greener planet and a more prosperous future.
That's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
If unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
Zero carbon.
East Talk. Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista Series 5, Just Stop the Tories. This is the UK's go-to podcast when it comes to environmental matters. If it's green, it is in. It's interesting, Dale, that you titled this last year now when we began Series 5 of Just Stop the Tories. And now the realisation of your dream could be about to happen because as we record this less than 24 hours ago, the Prime Minister only went and called an election, didn't he?
It's right. It's like he's joined us. I mean, the one thing we needed to happen to be able to just stop the Tories was an election. Yeah. And it's been coming all year. We didn't know it was October, November, even January, you know. It's felt like a torture, actually, while things continue to go pretty badly in our country and the Tories continue to scrap with each other over who'll be the next leader and whether, 3.5% immigration across the English Channel should have 90% of their focus and all of that kind of stuff. And he's only gone and done it. And I think it's probably the one thing in his time, near 2 years as Prime Minister, that I might say was a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's various speculations as to why he chose July the 4th. I don't think it's anything to do with the fact that it's Independence Day in America, although somebody did tell us that his kids go to school in America. I don't know if there's any truth in that.
Probably they jump on a jet in the morning and pop over there. But look, we've labelled it Energy Independence Day because that's the day we reckon Labour win the election. We begin on this path, this journey to energy independence. They've made it clear they're up for that. And it's quite neat that it's July the 4th and it can be Britain's Energy Independence Day.
Yeah. Great British energy. This is part of the 6 pledges, of course, of Starmer. There's always a danger when party leaders announce stuff and you think that's great. And they go, yeah, we are going to do it, but just not this year or next year. Well, are you worried about that? Are you concerned that you might have to wait a bit, or do you think he'll be straight out of the traps on this one?
Well, some of the stuff they said they'll do on day one, so I'm not worried about that, like unbanning onshore wind. And I mean, it's almost the biggest single thing they can do to get us to energy independence. So, my short answer is no, I'm not worried.
Let's look at right-wing nut, shall we? There's the cuckoo. We've got a couple of characters in this one.
We've got a right-wing nut bag this week.
We have got we have. And it's an all-female cast this week. And we start with the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. What's she been up to?
Well, she's been found to have acted unlawfully. And I think it was while she was Home Secretary, which is like super ironic. The High Courts have found that she kind of crowbarred a piece of anti-protest legislation through Parliament by the back door in a way that they say is unlawful, which I guess undoes it. But it's just another one of those kind of clampdowns by the Tories on peaceful protest, which now even the High Court, Supreme Court, whichever one it was, have said was wrong, Gov.
Bit of a shit look, isn't it, when you've got about 160 advisors around you? You'd think somebody might point out the illegality of your ideas.
You know what? I think that they like to live on that edge. I think they like to bait, what they think of as the deep state. They like to try to appear to be the champions of the people fighting the deep state and all that kind of stuff and the civil service. And I think they welcome that kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe thrive on it. Maybe.
Yeah, but not for much longer.
No, they've got another 6 weeks of this shit. So
but they won't be in government. That's the beauty.
There you go. Yeah,
that ends in a couple. I think it ends tomorrow. I think.
Yeah, it kind of dissolves, doesn't it? Because the king said so. That's how it all works.
A wonderful image, a parting image for Sunak, stood in the rain, whinging in the rain about the fact that Starmer has no plan. I mean, that was the best he could come up with. I'm calling an election because Keir Starmer has no plan.
It's quite funny, isn't it? Whoever advised him to go and do that in a torrential downpour is obviously a Labour vote.
I love the fact that even the climate's against him.
Yes, that's very true. He looked like he'd come up the wrong end of a water chute, didn't he? By the time he'd finished that.
And that soundtrack from Steve Bray, the anti-Brexit campaign, you must have heard it. It was perfect.
Well, that was Labour's election theme, wasn't it, back in the 90s? Things can only get better. We will wait and see. There is another inclusion in right-wing nuts. It's a cabinet minister this time.
Yeah, another one in the bag. This is Coutinho, Claire Coutinho. She's featured a lot lately. I think she's on manoeuvres to be the next leader. Sadiq Khan announced 100 new buses for London, going to be electric. They are coming from China. Honestly, it's where just about all of them come from. And Coutinho saw that as a chance to have a go at Labour, calling the plans for net zero made in China plans, accusing Labour of kind of basically outsourcing our net zero plan. But she seems unattached to reality, actually. I mean, most of the things we buy here in Britain, I'm going to say a majority, are made in China and have been for decades. And, the Chinese lead the world. 80% of all of the solar panels made and installed in the world are made in China. What are we to do without China's manufacturing capability? And she says, we have to give room instead for British suppliers to catch up and stuff. Well, I'm sorry, you've been in government 14 years. Did you give them room then to catch up? I don't think so.
I think, Dale, she's actually vying for a job as a co-host of this podcast because she's on it nearly every week at the moment.
Yes, she is. So, I just think it's just a silly bit of, I'm going to say virtue signaling, because it's a kind of favourite saying of the right wing. This is Claire Coutinho, virtue signaling, saying, net zero is a pro-Chinese policy. She seems to have forgotten that David Cameron announced a golden era of relations with China just 14 years ago.
Yeah. Let's talk about another initiative. This is from the Dale Vince Manifesto, I think. And that is the interview. You did an interview with The Sun. You've never shied away from giving interviews, TV, radio, newspapers, or whatever it happens to be, with organisations that ordinarily go against, perhaps stereotypically go against the kind of stuff that you stand for. And there's a good reason for that, because you're then talking to the right galleries. No point in talking to people who already agree with you, I suppose. However, in the interview you did with Harry Cole from The Sun, he's their political editor, you raised a tax on meat.
Actually, he did, but I didn't shy away from it. He said, should we have a tax on meat? And I was like, well, yeah, we probably should, actually, because it's the most damaging form of food available to us. We know this, damaging to the climate, to nature, and to human health. So, why not have tax on it? Because we have tax on so many things. As you were saying just before we got on air, look, if you buy a Coke in McDonald's, you'll pay sugar tax on it. So, what's wrong with the meat tax? And I ended the show by telling him that we were making protein from grass, and that in the future we could all eat grass, because I figured they'd tie these two together and trigger their audience with that. This lefty demands, as they say, a meat tax, which wasn't true, and wants to force us all to eat grass. I thought that was perfect for The Sun.
Question from Hannah on X says, Dale, how do we get involved in your voting campaign? Is there anything you want people to do? Getting young people to vote is crucial.
Yeah, and now that it's been announced that there'll be an election the 4th of July, there's almost no time left. We've got until the middle of June, I think it is, for people to get registered. If you're not registered before then, you just can't vote. It's a good thing that the election's coming soon, but it's a bad thing in terms of getting the voting campaign moving. So I would say, look, just talk to everybody that might be in that position of not having registered before to vote, and encourage them to. They've got about 3 weeks to do it, and they're going to need ID as well, because they've got 4 weeks to get that. And it's so important that we get young people to vote. And it's not just young people, because between the age of 18 and something like 44, I think it is, 50% of people didn't vote at their last election. That's half of everybody under the age of 40 odd.
Question in from Paul, who says, how come you keep touting Portugal's renewable credentials while ignoring basic geographical issues? He's very angry, Paul.
Yeah, I know. I saw the rudeness. But look, I flagged the geography last week when we talked about it. I said, 7 countries in the world or so have gone 100% renewable, but, they tend to be small countries in South America and stuff like that. And what was remarkable about this is it's Portugal right in Europe. So I think I mentioned geography. So I'm not really sure where you're coming from, Paul.
Let's look at a story here about polluting ships.
Yeah, I love it. We've got 2 stories here. I just want to say it's fish and ships. I'm loving them both.
So, that's ships, not shit.
Yeah, it could be. It could easily be that. Where are we first? Ships, right? Not chips.
Let's do ships.
Ships. So, great story. Little bit of a surprise, actually. I mean, we know that big ships are very polluting. They burn the dirtiest form of fossil fuels that we have available to us. It's called bunker fuel, the dirtiest kind of oil, high sulfur content. And somebody's done a study. Milford Haven in Wales is the UK's most polluted port. And ships there produce 100 times more sulfur oxide than all the cars in the surrounding county. I mean, that's incredible. And the cruise ships are apparently the worst, more harmful than container and cargo ships. The industry says, and this is sweet, I love this. The industry says it doesn't recognize the numbers and is working hard on investing in green technology.
As my old nan would have said, Dale, if ever a statement meant literally all, this is the one. we don't recognise the numbers.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
recognise them then, because there they are.
I felt it.
It's quite easy. These are the numbers. You don't recognise them. That doesn't somehow authenticate your view that they don't exist.
It doesn't. And then followed by a platitude, we're working hard on investing in green technology. Whoever never said that before?
Yeah, that's a classic one, that, isn't it? We're working hard. Well, we had a meeting once, but it doesn't come up much, does it? The ship pollution. And if you think about it, I mean, it doesn't take much thought to realise there's clearly a problem on the high seas.
Yeah, we need to stop them burning the dirtiest fuel available. We need to start by doing that, clean up the fuel they burn. There's good work happening in the shipping sector, with basically turbine blades being built onto the decks of ships, being used as big wings, in a kind of back to the future move to wind power shipping. But, a lot more needs to be done.
That's ships. Let's talk fish.
Yeah, let's do it. So migratory freshwater fish populations are down 80% since 1970. That's the headline shouting at us from this study. It's all regions of
80%.
80%, and it's all regions of the world. It's not just here in Britain. It's not just happening around the rainforest or what you like. Dams have got a big role to play in that. There are 1.2 million barriers across European rivers alone, which is incredible. Then you've got pollution, of course, farm runoff, all kinds of stuff. 80% of freshwater fish have gone.
That's extraordinary. Question in from Alex, who says, Dale, did you get your vegan burgers into other stockists? I don't do Ocado, but I fancy some of your grub on my barbecue.
We are still in Ocado, and that itself was quite an achievement, I want to say. But recently, we've made an agreement with the wholesale supplier for 4,000 Whole Food shops. So up and down the country, our stuff is going to be available to your local Whole Food shop, which is a big step. Getting into supermarkets is super hard. They usually want you to pay them to go in there, then give them products free and let them pay you when they sell them and stuff. There's all kinds of, what would you call it? Abusive. I would say it's abusive. The way supermarkets treat suppliers is abusive, but Whole Food shops are better. So I don't know if you frequent Whole Food shops, Alex, but hopefully.
But they're all over the place.
Yeah, go in and ask.
You could just download the Ocado app. For God's
Well, you
sake.
could do that. Or go into your local Whole Food shop and say, look, these are now available to you from Suma. How about you get some?
There it is. A super technical question corner feature. I like this. How many domestic 10 kilowatt hour batteries would we need to install in order to reduce the daytime peaks of electricity that the national grid currently has to manage using gas-fired powered stations? That was the question that came up on the last episode or the one before. You said you would go away and find out. How was the research, Dale Vince?
I think it was about 3 episodes ago, and it took a little bit longer than I hoped. And it became relevant because, it was relevant because the Conservatives was talking about building new gas-fired power stations, which is bonkers. Anyway, what we discovered, there's 35 or so gigawatts of gas power stations in our country. And the answer to how many 10 kilowatt batteries we need is 3.2 million to take out the average daytime peak demand that gas currently covers. So let's call it 3 million homes, 10% of our homes, 1 in 10 homes with a 10 kilowatt battery, and we don't need gas for the average daytime peak. Pretty good. There's a bigger peak, a maximum one that occurs very infrequently, and that would need 6 million homes. So, 20% of homes, 1 in 5. But really interesting, electric cars, of course, have much bigger batteries. And to meet the massive peak, the 6 million home peak, we only need 700,000 electric cars plugged into the grid at the right time. Now, we have 1 million on the road already, and EV sales this year have taken off and broken new records. So what's really interesting and is being overlooked by just about everybody is that we don't need fossil fuel backup. When we all have solar panels and batteries on our houses and that kind of stuff, and we're driving electric cars, not even all of us, in fact, just a low percentage, we'll have a great mobile, distributed, generating and balancing plant that we can use to help get us to 100% green electricity.
There it is. That was a thorough answer. Exciting times. And a final one to finish on. I think we're all aware of this problem, the never-ending rain.
Yeah, I was in a cab in London this week, and cabbie was just moaning at me about the never-ending rain. And I sympathise. I feel the same as like this winter has been just that. And turns out we've had 12 storms around Britain and Ireland. This just makes me laugh. The rain is 20% wetter it was before. I don't know how that works, but it just must be bigger rain. I think is what they really mean.
Yeah, 20% wetter. Yes. Is the weather wetter, or is the ground just wetter?
This winter has been the second wettest in 200 years.
It's a lot of years.
And, 20 people have died. There's been flooding and widespread disruption. The usual people deny that it's anything to do with the climate crisis. But these scientists in this report say it's a 1 in 50-year event normally, this kind of rain, but it's become a 1 in 5-year event because of the climate crisis. And if and when we hit 2 degrees global temperature rise, which is inevitable, it'll become a 1 in 3 years. So what we can see now is that we've f***ed up our weather. We're going to have more miserable weather in Britain because of the climate crisis, and that's happening now.
Jeez. It's a happy point to finish on.
Just happy.
You're so full of joy today.
I mean, if there's an upside...
Right spring in my step here.
my bad. I just want to say this one other little technical point. The reason, if anybody's wondering about it, why are we getting more rain when the planet's warming up, is that warm air carries more water.
Yeah. It's a simple fact. And Dale, we will speak in a week.
Yes. And, if you're listening to this and you're not, get out there and get registered to vote.
Yeah, definitely. Photo ID, remember that as well. Important stuff. Listen, you can follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/Dale Vince, facebook.com/Dale Vince, and on TikTok too.
You gotta love it.
Zero carbon.
East of.